The tour headed south for stage 5 from Rochester to Canterbury, the route covering 152 kilometres or 95 miles of the Kent countryside. The magnificent Norman Cathedral dominates the Canterbury skyline and will be clearly visible to the cyclists as they enter the city and ride on to the finish. It gives us a little taster of what to expect when the Tour de France passes through here in July next year. Well, perhaps the weather will be a little kinder then, as the tour will attract thousands of visitors to the southeast. Those here today to welcome the Tour of Britain braved the wind and rain to appreciate this historic city. There's no doubt the medieval streets of Canterbury have a tale or two to tell, but the story of stage 5 began in Rochester, where we rejoin Chris and Hugh.
Glorious shot there of the Medway, and we're down in Rochester for the start of the penultimate stage of the Tour of Britain. Rochester to Canterbury, a distance of 94.9 miles, sponsored by South East England Development Agency. And the scene is set here in the grounds of the historic castle of Rochester, with the pipe band playing, setting the scene. And there's a good crowd turned up to see the field off. And the overall standings, Martin Pedersen, CSC, is still the leader, with Luis Pasamontes of the Unibet team, the Spaniard, trailing by 51 seconds. Third, Filippo Pozzato of Italy, and the Quick Step squad at 2 minutes and 11 seconds. So this is the rollout, and it's quite a lumpy affair today in Kent, and we might get a bit of a sort out.
Well, certainly the riders have got some tired legs now, 4 tough days behind them. The weather, well, it's still challenging. There's some strong winds ahead of them today as well.
Pedalling here through the historic dockyards of Chatham. And tram lines that need some respect, because a little greasy. There has been some light rain, and if you touch one of those you can go down quite easily.
Well, still in the neutralised section here as they ride out of this area. It's pretty tricky. You do have to be careful on the tram lines.
Certainly do. This is one of the hazards when you're racing in Belgium, particularly if there's cobbles there as well, and the riders are showing caution. Now, what on earth has happened here?
Well, it looks like they've lost direction. Somebody's made a mistake and the whole thing's come grinding to a halt. I can't say the riders are going to object to that. A little extra break, that'll do.
Well, there's Pozzato and Tom Bonan, and I think that's Jakob Piller, the CSC team. Look at this. This is Axel Merckx. He doesn't want to miss the moment, so he's actually taken a picture of it. Have that in the scrapbook. This doesn't happen very often, does it?
Well, I think a hard day ahead of them. It just lightens things up, and I don't know if they'll be objecting too much at this point in the race.
Well, that's the commissaire president, and he's more or less telling the riders, OK, we've put the fault right, now let's get on with the action, as they continue to pedal their way out of this built-up area and set off for the countryside ahead. And I must admit, Chris, there's no urgency in this race. A certain amount of dissatisfaction amongst the riders, and this seems to be some sort of a protest. There's one or two things they're not happy with. I think one or two cars have actually found their way through the police cordon.
Yes, they have. I mean, of that I'm thinking also that we've just lost direction in the race, and I think this is really the riders making a mild protest about the conditions. They're a little bit concerned about their safety and the way the police have handled this, so they're just taking it steady now, and I think they're also having an excuse, to be honest, to give themselves a bit of a break. So everybody happy to let CSC just put on the rain capes and just keep things under control. Here's Eric van der Aarden. I think he's having a word with one of his riders, Alex Coots, I think it is.
I'm not going to race. When I was at the front for 100 kilometres.
Oh.
The Quick Step and CSC.
Ah, but they're riding for the classification, eh? It's allowed you to go, eh? It's a race, eh? Alex. Go slowly to the front and trying it alone. I talked to the other guys to be have to attention. Trying it. You never know.
Well, they're heading to the first sprint of the day, and you could hardly say they're racing for it, smiling at each other in fact, and it's Johan van Summeren there crossing the line first to pick up 5 points and further increase his lead in that competition.
Well, the riders still deciding that they don't want to race in earnest just yet. I think, to be honest, they're quite happy to have an excuse to back off for a while. Clearly not very happy about a few hiccups that have been in the race, but I'm pretty certain that there's going to be enough people in there who are going to spark it off fairly soon, Hugh.
Yes, that's right, but at the moment they're still just dancing their way gently, aren't they, up to the summit of the concluding climb here, and that's Crete Road. It's a second category ascent, so the first man over collects 6 points, and it is the King of the Mountains here, Schleck, of the CSC team, that hit the summit first, and that extra 6 points now takes his total up to 50, so he is now in an unassailable position. He can't lose that title, and so he is the Ian King of the Mountains, with one climb to go tomorrow of Highgate Hill.
I think calling that a road is a little bit ambitious. It was incredibly narrow. I didn't think we actually had anything like that in this country.
It's like some of the little by-lanes in Shropshire where I still ride my bike, that, Chris. So still nobody seems to want to take this on, and we're well into the stage now.
Very, very strong crosswinds there. I think if this race did start off now, it would be again in pieces, and that's probably what people are really worried about. So everybody happy to just wait until those final few kilometres.
Wonderful shot there of the famous cathedral in Canterbury. But now it looks, with 5 kilometres to go, as though the riders are still thinking about getting the tempo lifted. There's a gathering of the British team on the left, Unibet with them just to the right. The King of the Mountains still content to cruise along at the front. The yellow jersey, Pedersen, well, he's had a very easy day.
He has. I think he's done very well out of this, and his team, as I said earlier, can scent the finish now, so they're ready to defend that jersey, and they've set themselves up, and they did so in fine style earlier on this race. But you can see the groupings of teams now as rather than individuals, and everybody's just waiting for somebody else to start the action. Well, I think my money would be on the British team there. They're ready to go. Already had success with Roger Hammond.
Gutter to gutter, and you just get the feeling now that the blue touch paper is about to be lit. The young British team getting very, very keen, and they come to the front now, lining out almost like a team pursuit squad here, and the pace now being lifted, and lifted significantly. So at long last, we've now got a race on our hands.
Well, you mentioned the team pursuit, and that is, of course, these guys' main discipline on the track, and in fact it's the distance as well. They've just come under 4 kilometres to go. I think they're looking to set Roger Hammond up for another sprint finish, and they've shown already in this race they know how to do a lead out, they know how to use their men properly, and they're going to do that right now.
Certainly not afraid of reputations. You've got some of the fastest sprinters in the world in this lineup, but they're having a go. That was a bit dangerous.
Well, it is a bit of a tricky run-in, and of course the best place to stay out of trouble is right at the front, and that's what they're doing. It means you keep in control, and perhaps you're not quite in the shelter, but you don't have the stop-start and to keep chasing the other riders. So I think they're doing exactly the right thing, and that front shot we have with the camera, it just doesn't quite give you the speed that they're travelling at, what we can see here from the helicopter.
Well, I caught a glimpse of Francesco Cicci as well. He's not far away from the front, rides on the quick step team, very quick sprinter, but the British team are still turning the screw. Oof, the Unibet rider just got round that Ballard, and it looks like 1 or 2 more riders are now starting to take interest at the front.
Well, it's thinning out behind them though, and I wouldn't be surprised if it actually fractured in the last kilometre or so, because it's going to be very, very difficult. The pace is about to jump up as they start that final run-in.
Well, the finish in Canterbury is in Reims Way. There's a massive crowd there. That is exactly the same position where the Tour de France will finish in just under 12 months' time. So now it's Quickstep coming to the front. Little hand signal there. I think he thought he got a teammate on his wheel, but he actually got one of the British riders.
Well, I am surprised that they're not putting more men to the fore here. There's such a strong sprint team, and this is exactly the sort of finish that should suit them, but they seem to be content with just one man up the front. I am surprised Mark Cavendish doesn't seem to be very far up at the moment, because he's another guy that should be looking for a good win today.
Well, of course, Cavendish normally rides with the British boys, but he's guesting on that T-Mobile team. Maybe he could profit from a lead out from the youngsters, but they are now making a fist of this as we're down to 2 kilometres to go.
Well, Cavendish on the right there is actually just starting to move forward, and again I'm surprised that his team don't start working for him, because he's proved already in this race that he's capable of winning a stage. So that is a little bit of a surprise. He's used to riding with the Great Britain riders, of course. They're former teammates of him, and now he's actually riding as a professional for the T-Mobile team, so he knows which wheels to follow there.
Cavendish is certainly worthy of a victory. He's had a 7th, a 4th and a 2nd, so he's been knocking on the door before, and Chris, I just caught a glimpse of Cavendish, that stocky little figure from the Isle of Man. He's about third, fourth wheel back, so he's profiting from the lead out here of the young British team.
I think it's Ian Stannard who's absolutely lined it out now, and of course this is what the sprinters want, because once you've secured your position, it's so hard for anybody else to actually move up. You have to use so much energy that takes away from your sprint, so this is why they actually do these lead outs.
Once again, it's an uphill finish, so it's all about timing that move to perfection, getting very, very close now to the run-up in the finishing funnel. One of the British boys just swinging off there. He's done his turn. Now these are the men that are burying themselves, and yes, Cavendish is profiting from this. He's third wheel back.
700 metres to go, maybe a little bit less now. Roger Hammond is nicely placed there behind Mark Cavendish, and I think those two have got to be the favourites for the win here.
Also one of the Skill Shimano riders just there as well. He's about fourth back as they're approaching the little elbow that will line them up for the run to the finish. Cavendish now sitting second wheel. It's all about when do I time my effort to go now. He's waiting and waiting. He doesn't want to jump too early.
Oh, somebody's pulled their foot out at the front there. One of the British riders just pulled their foot out, and it's changed the dynamics completely.
And it's left Cavendish on the front with 200 to go. I think he would have liked to have hit the front a little later, but Cavendish on the right is still leading. But here comes the challenge on the left from the Italian, Cicci, and Cicci gets the better of Cavendish on the line. Verhoeven of Skill Shimano finishes in third spot. So another runner-up place then for the fast finisher Mark Cavendish. Here's a chance to look at it again, Chris.
I think you were right, Hugh. It was just too far. That just one rider pulling his foot out. We're still not quite sure who that was, and it just changed the sprint completely. It was just too far for him, and he died at the end.
So it was Francesco Cicci who was first across the line, Quick-Step's second stage win of the week. Mark Cavendish in second place, earning vital points for the green jersey, and Art Verhoeven in third. Russell Downing relinquishing the green jersey, finishing in fifth place. The patient crowd in Canterbury finally welcomed the stage winner, Italian Francesco Cicci, who's been a consistent finisher on this tour, third in the points competition. Riding for T-Mobile, Mark Cavendish, a member of the British track cycling team and a Commonwealth champion, collects the green jersey after taking valuable points, finishing second in Canterbury. Well, Mark, another second in the stage, like we saw yesterday in Birmingham, but this means, of course, you get that green jersey. How happy are you with that?
Oh, happy with it. It means I'm being consistent this week, so hopefully I can just keep it tomorrow.
We've heard a lot about the weather out there and the conditions and the fact the riders decided not to contest. How did you feel about that?
I didn't feel too good today, so it actually helped me. But I think it's not too nice for the organisers. We know when they don't race like that. But it's bad weather and that. But it came down to bunch sprint, so it suited me well anyway.
Martin Peterson maintains his lead in the general classification, 51 seconds ahead of Luis Pasamontes. Russell Downing still the best placed British rider, now 9th overall. So again, Martin Pedersen of the CSC team receives the yellow jersey. The young Danish rider will wear yellow into London for the final stage.